Welcome back to another episode of Into the Ivy. We are here. It is spring, kind of. It wouldn't look like that in the Chicagoland area today, but technically, it's spring training. Um, it's the beginning of March. Baseball's back. We're a little under a week in. We took a little bit of a break there at the beginning of the year to get some stuff right, but now's a great time to jump right back in. Let's go. Welcome back once again to another episode of Into the Ivy. Today's date is Friday, March 3rd, 2023. And the Cubs are back. Games started last weekend. We're a few games in, and I can't tell you guys how excited I am that Chicago Cubs baseball is back. When I tell you I haven't been this excited for baseball in a few years, I mean it. 2020 sucked. 2020 was a horrible year. It was the shortened season on top of many other things. There were quite a few good things that happened. Actually, there were a lot of good things that happened for me personally in 2020. But as far as the situation with the rest of the world, 2020 happened. Then we had 2021, which things were still weird. 2022, we had the lockout that threatened the season. Yeah, we lost a year and we had to make all those games up. Or I'm sorry, a week, not a year. We lost a week and had to make those games up. But 2023, if there was a stretch for the Cubs to not be exciting, it was during those years. But now that we're finally getting that first regular, like the first regular season of baseball, it's a breath of fresh air. And the Cubs are supposed to be competitive this year. At least I'm proclaiming that. A lot of us are expecting that. We need to remember that we need to we need to watch our expectations here, but I don't think the 80 wins is out of the question. That might be a little bit of an oversell, but I would like to finish over 500. Anything over 500, even if it's 82-80, that's a win of a season for me. That's going to be a little bit tough at the beginning of the year. So obviously, starting spring training, we have already gotten bit by the injury bug a few times. Seiya Suzuki out with the left oblique strain. This sucks. This straight up sucks because he came back to camp jacked, and we were all excited about it on Cubs Twitter. We saw all these memes of him on all these bodybuilders' faces, and just to get scratched from the very first game, just absolutely heartbreaking. And on top of all that, we won't even get to see Seiya play in the World Baseball Classic for his home country, Team Japan, because of this injury. That sucks even more because I was excited. I'm pretty sure everyone was excited to see what this guy could do and what this guy was going to do with how jacked he got. We're still waiting on a timetable from the team. There's no set. This is when we expect him back. David Russ kind of was talking about it earlier this week. Didn't give us much to theorize off of. The only thing that we can really do is expect that he's going to start the season on the IL out of precaution because he is going to be one of these pieces that we need for the next few years. So all of that. And I compared this injury to what Tyler Glasnow has for the Tampa Bay Rays. He's a pitcher. He just got shoved for 6 to 8 weeks with this left oblique strain. And as a couch doctor, not knowing anything about obliques or anything about muscles or the human body, couch doctor time, I'm going to say 4 to 8 weeks. The only reason I lower it that much is because there was rumors that, he's not ruling out opening day. I don't think he's going to start opening day. I don't think he's going to be on the team opening day. I think he's going to start the season on the injured list. But 4 to 8 weeks, maybe because he's a right fielder, he's an outfielder and not a pitcher. There shouldn't be any rush to get him back, especially with how brutal the weather at Wrigley is in April, even going into May. Let the guy take his time, get right, because we need him healthy if we're going to shoot for above 500 this year. If we're going to compete, we should finish this season second place, no questions asked. First, if we get some help from the Cardinals choking at a point or two throughout the year, but we'll see what happens there. So if Say is out, if Suzuki's not going to be playing opening day, who is? Who is? I think the obvious answer here is Nelson Velasquez, who got some time in right field last year. He came up and made the most of his opportunity. I think that there's more of a step he can take in 2023 than what we saw last year. And it's respectable in the 9 at-bats we've seen so far. He's batting .222, 300 OBP with an .856 OPS. I expect him to be the guy that gets that opening day start in right. But there's also guys that could get spot starts there as well till Suzuki comes back, mainly Christopher Morel. He's going to be a guy that we're looking to plug in anywhere. Patrick Wisdom's a guy that could go out there. Trey Mancini's a guy that can go out there. You know, when those guys aren't playing at third base or first base, they're going to need to be somewhere. And if they want to put Hosmer at DH or one of them at DH, put them in right field, who knows? David Ross can get creative with this. He can get very, very creative, and I'm excited to see what he does. This one sucks too, because I do think that if it wasn't for Brennen Davis's injury last year that sidelined him most of 2022 with that back injury, I think he would have been next man up. Suzuki gets hurt. Okay, Brennen Davis, you're going to be opening day starter in right field. I think we need to temper the expectations there also, because, you know, he's coming back from that back injury with how, like we talked about, the brutal weather at Wrigley Field in April, going into May with how cold it is, might not be the best for that back. We don't know how it's going to be. We've seen him in the 4 at-bats, and he's looked pretty darn good in those 4 at-bats. He's hitting .250, 400 OBP, and a 900 OPS. Respectable. But unless he has a really hot spring training, I think he's going to start the season in AAA. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that that's perfectly acceptable. Get him more at-bats in Iowa, because he really didn't – I don't even think he hit 150 at-bats in Iowa last year with the injury and all that. So get him some more at-bats in Iowa. He'll probably be a summer call-up to Wrigley Field. He'll be that summer prospect that he comes up and everybody's excited, and that people flock to Wrigley Field to go see, because we expect him to be a part of that next competitive team. Because, you know, this is a guy, depending on what the Cubs decide to do with Ian Happ, depending on what happens with Cody Bellinger beyond 2023. Obviously, PCA is the guy that we're all looking to take over for Cody Bellinger, and possibly 2024, depending on how he progresses this season. Kevin Alcantara could be a year behind PCA, probably a year or two from now. So Brennen Davis, if he has a great 23, maybe the Cubs are a little bit more willing to move Ian Happ at this trade deadline this year. I think this is going to decide the fate of Ian Happ. If Brennen Davis progresses, well, I think that knowing the Cubs front office and how Jed Hoyer has been doing things the last few years, Jed will opt to have Brennen Davis be this team's left fielder next year. If it's not looking great, I think that the odds of Ian Happ getting extended by the Cubs improve. So I think there's a lot riding on Brennen Davis. So there's not really a rush to just throw him out there. This is one of those guys that his development is going to be crucial to this team. So let's talk about one of the newer rules in baseball, and one that's drawn a lot of different emotions, especially from myself. It's the pitch clock. So I took the rules right off MLB's website. I'm going to read them for you guys right now. So the pitch clock will start running at 15 seconds when the bases are empty. It's 20 seconds when there's runners on. The hitter gets 1 timeout per plate appearance, so no more of this, I got to adjust my batting gloves after every single pitch. No more. And they have to be in the box with 8 seconds left, regardless of the 15-second or 20-second. If it's 15 or 20, batter has until there's 8 seconds left to be back in the box. The pitcher also gets 2 disengagements per batter, so that's either pickoff attempts or step-offs. You only get 2 per batter. And the violations for that will result in a balk, whereas the 8 for the batter, the violation will be an automatic strike, which we saw in, of course, the Braves-Red Sox, bottom of the 9th, bases loaded, full count, game ended on an automatic strike because the batter wasn't ready to go. That's where I think I was most upset with the whole pitch clock. So I'm trying to temper my feelings on this. I'm trying to reel myself back in. And it's also helping with the length of the game. Marquee popped up an image the other day, sitting, I think it was the Mariners game, where the average length of game has gone down last year from about like 3 hours, 10 minutes to about 2.5 hours now, roughly, not exact, but roughly. And I think that helps because, I'm feeling better about sitting down on the couch to watch a baseball game and not having to worry about being there for 3.5, almost 4 hours, depending on how the game is progressing. This is getting closer to how long the length of an NFL game is. NBA, NHL, NCAA football, basketball, take your pick. It's getting closer to those length of games, which I think should help baseball in the long run get its popularity back amongst maybe folks that don't enjoy the sport as much. I think that maybe this will bring more fans into the baseball culture. Who knows? But there's a lot to be seen. Hopefully this helps with growing the game. And, at first I hated this. I hated it so much because I thought it was going to determine a lot of games in stupid moments like that Braves-Red Sox game. But listening to the guys on the CHGO Cubs podcast the other day, they made a great point that as we progress through the season, teams are going to incorporate this rule, as they should, into the way that they approach the game every single day, because the first thing I was upset about was if this determines a playoff game or, God forbid, a World Series game, I'm going to lose my mind. I don't think it's going to get to that point. It's going to determine some games here in spring training, maybe a few here when we roll into April at the beginning of the year. But by the time we get into September and October, if a team gets an automatic strike, that's their own fault at that point, because we'll have had this rule for almost a full season now. So by then, if you don't have it down pat, you deserve the automatic strike. It's going to suck if it comes in a clutch moment, but hey, it's baseball now. It's a rule that is in the game this year, and we have to live with it, whether we like it or not. So I think I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to say the pitch clock, yay or nay. I'm going to say yay because it's going to speed up the length of game. I think it's going to provide more offense. Who knows? I'm willing to give it a try, you guys. I am trying to be more positive. I'm trying to be a more positive person. Hopefully this helps me as a baseball fan. Who knows? We talked a little bit about what we're going to do in right field. Let's talk about what we're going to do at third base. Okay. So obviously we all, as Cubs fans, all on Cubs Twitter, I know I was a big fan of go get Rafael Devers. And then when he got extended by the Red Sox, then we're like, okay, Machado says he's going to opt out. Maybe we go get Machado. Who knows? We missed out on him a few years ago. Maybe we try to make that right now. Extended by the Padres. So where does that leave us in 2023? Obviously, Matt Chapman is going to be now the big name third base target this winter, but everyone else who needs a third baseman is going to be in on him now, because after him, it dropped. There's a very steep drop off. So you got to look at the guys we've got in-house: Patrick Wisdom, Christopher Morel, Zach McKinstry, Edwin Rios, David Bodie, Nick Madrigal. You got to look at these guys and hope that one of them can take over the starting third base spot. And obviously Patrick Wisdom has been that guy for the last few years, ever since we shipped Chris Bryant off to San Francisco. But, Patrick Wisdom out with the left groin tightness. That's okay. He told reporters earlier this week that it's more so out of precaution, that if we were playing regular season games, he'd be in there. So I'm okay with that on March 3rd if he sits out, to make sure that he doesn't tear something or pull something even more. Get the guy some rest. That's fine. I'm looking at guys like Christopher Morel and Nick Madrigal. Obviously, Edwin Rios, there's some appeal there, brand new free agent guy. But I'm looking at Nick Madrigal and Christopher Morel. And I think I'm liking Nick Madrigal a lot more. When it first came out, I think it was last month that Ross was giving Madrigal time at third base. I scoffed at the idea. I think a lot of us did, because we're like, this guy isn't going to get the ball across the diamond. In less than a week, we've seen these throws that this guy has made, and he's disproving it. He's disproving that, and I'm here for it. In the bat is there. He's 3 for 9 this spring, small sample size. He's got a run. He's got 3 RBIs, 2 of which came yesterday on an RBI double in the first inning that got Happen Bellinger across. He went 2 for 3 yesterday against the A's. He's batting 333 with a 333 OBP, a 777 OPS. He's getting on base. He's making contact. He's hitting the ball. I don't need him to be a 30 home run guy. I don't need him to be a 10 home run guy. Small baseball, small ball. Get on base, get guys across home plate, and I'm good with that. I'm very much good with that. I think that Nicky Two Strikes has the ability to be David Ross's Tommy La Stella. And the only reason I say that is because Tommy La Stella played behind guys like Javi Baez, Addison Russell, and Ben Zobrist during the Cubs competitive window. So I know that you could probably argue that window was 2015. It probably expectations were 2021 before we traded all those guys off. But for the sake of it, it was probably 2015 to 2020. For the sake of my argument here, let's say that was, we're going to look at 3 years, 2016, obviously, 2017, and 2018. In each of those 3 seasons, La Stella had more than 150 at-bats, and he had more than a 340 OBP in each of those years. They're similar in build. Obviously, Nick Madrigal is about 3 inches shorter than Tommy La Stella, but they weigh about the same. They play roughly the same positions. They're utility guys. At least that's how I think that they should be used. And I do think that Nick Madrigal has the ability to be one of those come off the bench guys like Joe Madden used to do with Tommy. And he's going to be playing behind Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson, which will be a top 5 middle infield in baseball this season, defensively wise. So you get into those late games, 7, 8, 9 inning, maybe Dansby or Nico aren't hitting the ball well. They're playing pretty good defense, but maybe they're not hitting the ball well. And you've got a guy standing on second. You got a guy standing on third. You're down 1. You can put Madrigal in to hit for one of these guys. And if he gets that run across, that's what you asked him to do. And I think that's the role that he has that he can fill on this team. If we're not going to put him at third base, I'd give him the chance to be the team's third baseman moving forward. But it all goes back to, I don't want to take Patrick Wisdom's bat out of the lineup. Patrick Wisdom, the thing with him is when he's hot, he's hot. When he's not, he's not. He has the ability, if he goes on a nice run, he can get you 30 home runs a season. And I'm pretty sure he led the team in home runs last year with about 25. But after that, he lived and died by the home run ball. Nick Madrigal doesn't. Nick Madrigal, if he can get on base, that's what we need. That's what we're going to rely on this year. We need to rely on small ball this year. So I'm willing now to give Nick Madrigal the chance to prove me wrong. Please, 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 please prove me wrong. I would absolutely love to be wrong about you. Make me eat my words, please. Please. But I'm all for keeping Nick Madrigal around. Unless a team, I don't know, like the Los Angeles Dodgers wants to throw some interesting prospects at us. So over the weekend, the Dodgers lost Gavin Lux to a torn ACL, and they're probably looking to fill that void so they can keep Miguel Rojas at shortstop. That's just the business of being a team that wants to compete every single season. So I did list 4 guys that I think that the Cubs could mention or at least throw around the idea of making a deal, shipping off to Los Angeles, depending on the return you can get. Obviously, Zach McKinstry, utility guy that we got from the Dodgers originally. Maybe they want to inquire about bringing him back. David Bodie, another guy that's fallen off the radar of Cubs fans. He's playing behind a lot of guys just like Madrigal. There's not a lot of playing time in it for him. And obviously the injury history, maybe you allow him to go get the chance to get regular at-bats somewhere else if a team is willing to move for him. Nick Madrigal, another guy that I thought before spring training, this would have been perfect. Like we talked about sending him to the Red Sox. I would probably say that Nick Madrigal, I don't want to trade him as much anymore now because of how well he's doing. Granted, short, very, very, very small sample size, not even at a week, but I don't want to move Madrigal now. And depending on how much the Dodgers are willing to give up, this is probably the home run trade that they could make with us is trading for Christopher Morel. And I say that not in the sense that I am actively wanting to shop Christopher Morel, but if the Dodgers are willing to give you a pretty decent piece or two for him, I think it's at least worth discussing, right? Like I'm not making that up, right? I don't know. Granted, once again, I do not want to trade Nick Madrigal. I do not want to trade Christopher Morel. I want to keep those guys on the Cubs in 2023. But if the Dodgers are willing to make a move and they're willing to pay a pretty penny for him, this isn't a roster where we have a bunch of untouchable pieces like we did with Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez, Chris Bryant, Kyle Schwarber, Wilson Contreras during our competitive window. We don't have a bunch of untouchables. Probably your untouchables right now are probably Dansby Swanson and Seiya Suzuki. That's probably it. And I would throw Nico Horner in there too. That's probably it. But I don't think we make a deal with the Dodgers. I really don't. I think that the Cubs are done making trades. And I'm fully okay with that as a fan. Just hypothetical that if we were going to discuss a deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers, these are the 4 names I think that would get brought up. So over the course of 2023 now, I want to do something interesting where I do weekly MVP honors, and I'm going to keep a tally of how many times a guy wins my weekly MVP honors. And at the end of the season, we'll have who was Ben's Cubs 2023 MVP based on the number of times I award it to them. And it'll be every single week throughout the year. So this is we'll do it with spring training included because we're going to do it today. So by the end of the season, whenever the Cubs are done playing baseball, we'll have a total number and we'll give all those results. This week, weekly MVP honors are going to David Bodie. I know, surprising name. There were quite a few guys that could be in there. Obviously, with Nick Madrigal's hot start yesterday against the A's, Cody Bellinger's 2 hits the other day against the Mariners that sparked a good run. I ultimately gave it to David Bodie because he hit that 3-run homer in that first game on Saturday in the bottom of the 5th that put the Cubs ahead of the Giants for good. So got them their first win of the year or of spring training, and I'm pretty happy with that. So David Bodie gets weekly MVP honors. As far as that goes, that's today's episode. We've got a whole season ahead of us. We're very excited for what the season has to bring. I'm very excited as a Cubs fan. You should be too. Go Cubs go, baby. Go Cubs go. Find us on Twitter at into_the_Ivy23. Find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Give us a like, subscribe, share us with your friends, share us with your White Sox fans if you want to make them mad, share us with your other Cubs fans, and we'll see you here next time. Have a great one, everybody.